Let me begin by asking this a million or billion-dollar question. You may have been asked of this before for the past 3 weeks, but let me ask you once again. Who wants to get rich? At any one time, we did or we do want to get rich. Wala pong masama kung gusto nating yumaman. Diba? Libre pong mangarap. For me personally, I wanted to get rich. You know why? I wanted to get rich because I want to build a foundation for the underprivileged children who wants to get through schooling. You know, I have a soft spot for children, the underprivileged children, because I myself grew up in a disadvantaged circumstances. It was during my time that our family was into poverty. My father lost, it was burned twice, the then famous tailoring shop. My mother, who was a merchant, buying things in wares, jewelries in Cebu and sell in our hometown, she died of cancer, lymphoma. So I knew what it is like to be in need of money. No insurances, no investment. We all have to start from the scratch all over again with 8 mouths to feed. I wanted to do that because I wanted to give back to the community so that I can leave an impact in that part of the world, a better place to live in. Because by doing so, it is a sense of fulfillment. That is something that each one should have. We should find a purpose. What is the one thing that you want to fulfill in this life? Building up a foundation, I could also see that as a means to spread God's love by sharing God's word. Amen? So I hope I have instilled in you to find that one thing that you want to fulfill in your life. What is your purpose in life? Aside from serving God, in giving back to the community. Now, whenever we talk about money, it evokes certain emotions from each one of us. No? It can be one or a combination of those. A research by the Institute of Neuroscience and Psychology says that there are 4 basic emotions: sadness, fear or disgust, anger or surprise, and happiness. Now, what are these emotions? I guess we can further appreciate this if we are to elaborate this. You can be sad because you don't have money. You don't have the means to buy what you want, more so what you need. You feel hopeless. You feel desperate, disappointed. You can be afraid because of the impending loss of income. Narinig no baka magtanggalan. Last man in will be the first one out, lalo na pag hindi na-meet yung quota. You can be angry because you find yourself in a situation, bakit nagkaganito? Bakit ang laki na ng utang ko? Paano nang pambayad ko? Lahat na lang ng pumapasok, nailabas, walang pumapasok sa savings. Or you can be happy because you have money. More so, you have more than enough money. You're happy because you have some control in your life over power and authority because you can fix problems, issues, and concerns when you have the money. You can buy what you need, more so you can buy what you want. So those are the 4 basic emotions. But let me add one more emotion that is evoked in us whenever we hear about money: envy. This is a feeling of dissatisfaction when you see that someone else have more money than you have. Okay? So what are the emotions that we have discussed so far? Sad, afraid, angry, happy, or envious? Which one are you feeling right now? No matter what emotion is evoked in us, there's one thing common among us. It's because money is a necessity. The only issue is when we feel good about ourselves when we have more money. So naging dahilan ng gusto nating maging masaya is to run after money. And that could be the driving force to want more money, to be happy. In short, we have this notion that if we have more money, we can be happier. If you are taking notes today, the title of our conversation for today is The Ultimate Currency. Today, we will mostly talk about money as the theme of this year's Koinonia is about setting personal guardrails. So the money that is used in exchange for something is what we call currency. It is something that is used as a medium of exchange. In short, the ultimate currency is money. It is what we use in exchange for something that we desire to gain. However, Ben Tal-Shahar, the Israeli American professor in Harvard, who teaches one of the most popular courses in Harvard, positive psychology, he wrote in his book, Happier. He says that in order for us to assess the worth of a company, we need to evaluate the value in terms of its assets and liabilities, profits and losses. And the only means to measure that is by using money. So in short, to assess the business, the ultimate currency is money. We speak in terms of money. But for the human beings, just like business, we also gain profit. And we also suffer losses. But the ultimate currency is not money. The ultimate currency is happiness. So the only reason why money is desirable is because it gives us a positive impact. Yeah? It fulfills a social, emotional satisfaction in each one of us. In short, one would not seek money if it does not contribute to being happy. Okay? So there's always a connotation to equate money with happiness. But what does the Bible say about wanting more money? The dangers of wanting more money and how we can avoid them. In today's conversation, we will be referring to the book of 1 Timothy chapter 6. And the one thing that we can get from this reference verse is this. Dangers can be avoided if you are contented. Without even going through the verses, you can racially agree that if you are contented, dangers can be avoided. So a quick background on the book of 1 Timothy. This is a pastoral epistle of the Apostle Paul to his young protege, Timothy, who was then the church leader of Ephesus. Chapter 6 paints the godliness, no? In which Paul is reminding Timothy of the conduct of worship, of social welfare, of the behavior of the church leaders, and about handling the false teachers. So this is where we start. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 6. But godliness with contentment is great gain. Now, whenever we see the word or but at the start of the statement, it gives us an idea that it is trying to connect two contrasting ideas. For us to understand this, we need to go back. And we need to refer to verse 5 if you have the Bible with you. It says there that, and who think that godliness is a means to financial gain. Now, the main subject at to which these verses refer to are the false teachers. During that time, the false teacher, they make it as a means for livelihood. No? Kaya sila naging church leader dahil gusto nilang kumita. To which Paul actually disagrees. That's why he is saying this. Godliness with contentment is gain. Not that godliness is a means to financial gain. In today's context, it is equivalent to those who pose as Christian ministers, but they don't really have the love for truth, the love for God, the love for the church. They are only there because of money. What about us? How does this apply to us? Now, godliness is a way of life, or spending the life with God, walking with God, and pleasing God. And being contented with God, with what God has provided and blessed us with, it is much more than what money can give. You know why? Because a godly life invites God as our sole provider and the blesser of gifts. So that is the gain that we can get if we live a godly life. Godliness then should be a source of contentment, not as a source of gain. But are we content? We are naturally not content. In our fallen nature, we are naturally discontented. We look around and we see that someone has that we don't have, or has more than what we have. And that is the start of discontentment when we look and compare. We are not content because we are always living in our mind the if only life. if only I have a high-paying job, if only I have a business, if only I have investments. No? This if only kind of thinking also spreads to the other majors of our life. Like, kung meron lang sana akong boyfriend o girlfriend na galante, kung meron lang sana akong asawa na may pera, kung meron lang sana akong biyenan na mayaman. In other, all aspects yan nun siya kadesperado, pera pa rin ang iniisip, ang motibo. Irregardless of, we have always that thinking that if we change our condition to something more than what we have or where we are now, we think that we can have the contentment, we can be happier, we can have that joy. But such is not the case. In their personal finance classic, Your Money or Your Life, Joe Dominguez and Vicky Robin argued that the relationship between spending money and the fulfillment that you have is less than what you spend on. More spending does lead to more fulfillment, but only up to a point. Spending too much can actually have a negative impact on the quality of your life. The author suggests that fulfillment, that is being content with your life, can be graphed, something like this. It is non-linear. So this is the fulfillment curve. Money spent, fulfillment. So we have 4 sections in this fulfillment curve. There is survival, comfort, luxuries, and overconsumption. As we can see here, if you spend on your survival, what is the gradient in fulfillment? It is much, much more than the other sections, right? That is the most fulfillment, the most contented that we are, if we are able to meet the basic necessities in life: food, clothing, shelter. Okay po? Now, if you spend the same amount of money on top of your survival, and that is where you meet the comfort section, that is where you buy a sofa to sit in, a pillow to sleep in, the clothes. They can also bring fulfillment, happiness, contentment. But if you compare the money spent, they are almost the same, but the fulfillment is lesser than what you spend on the survival. Now, beyond comfort comes the luxuries. This is where you move from your small HDB into a private condo. You buy a car, you sip wine once in every night. No? So these are just beyond the comfort. They are now already considered as luxuries. But you can see here that the fulfillment that you get, in spite of more money that you spend, you can only get that much fulfillment. So we are only being fulfilled up to that point. No? So luxuries. Anything beyond that, the stuffs that you have are taking over your life. You can see that the fulfillment starts to degrade. Hindi ka na nagiging masaya. Why? Because it is affecting the quality of your life. You need a bigger house to live in because you have so much stuff. It comes to a point that you need to rent a storage room dahil wala ka nang mapaglagyan. So you start to having problems. Now, the point here is that you can only have enough. That is up to the point that you can be contented. Sadly, wala tayong visual aid on where or how we can determine the point where we can be contented. No? Iba-iba po yan para sa atin. Iba-iba po ang ating sense of contentment. The overconsumption that is beyond the peak, no? As sabi ko kanina, that is the point when the stuffs are taking over your life. In real life, hindi natin malalaman ang point na yan when it is enough. But knowing that you have enough can be better than having millions of dollars. If you're obscenely rich but are not happy, what good it is to have money. Contentment comes from having enough, not too little and not too much. So how can we be contented? Let us be reminded that a godly life should be a contented life. Why? Because discontentment is a form of unbelief. We are discontented because we don't really believe that God is telling us the truth. We are not contented because we don't believe that He is always after for our own good. We don't really believe that He will do what He said He will. We don't really believe, and that unbelief makes us susceptible to temptation and consequently to disobedience. To be content is a choice. You choose to believe that God will provide, that He is the source of all life. You choose to believe that He is a protector, that He is the source of security and safety. You choose to believe that He is just and gracious, that He even provides for more than what we need and enables us to do when the circumstances calls for it. And that in circumstances, He always meant for our own good. Our contentment should lie on our unchanging God. For in spite of the circumstances, we will not be only spiritually nourished, but we will experience the joy and the peace. For we know that in all things, God works for our own good. So there's indeed a great gain then when we choose to focus on what God has already given us. When we disregard what we do not have, when we refuse to run after what others have, and when we are contented and grateful for what God has already given us. For then we will experience the joy, the peace that evades those who have great wealth. Verse 7 reminds us that whatever we accumulate in this world, we are not able to carry it with us when we die. We will leave this world empty-handed in the same way that we have entered this world. Everyone who has lived in this world and whatever it is that they have held on to, fame, fortune, power, there will come a time that they will have to let them go. They will be gone, and they will be forgotten. Hence, in verse 8, it is best to enjoy what we already have, the basic necessities in life, enough to sustain us, for we shall be sufficiently provided for. Now, it will be a sweet surprise if God blesses us. Remember when Solomon was asked by God, what did he ask for? He only asked for the basic necessities in order to govern and serve his people. But God was pleased with what he asked. He even gave him more than what he asked for. Napakaganda yung pakiramdam na binigyan ka na hindi mo ina-expect, hindi mo ina-anticipate. It is because God is gracious and God is pleased with you. Those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. Dangers can be avoided if you are contented. Because if you are contented, you don't want to get rich. If you are contented, you will not fall into any temptation. If you are contented, you will not fall into any trap that it will be to your disadvantage. If you are contented, you will not experience ruin and destruction. I'll give you my take on this. For this actually, I have experienced in my personal life. And this was back when I was in college. I was on the job training in Mandaue. I was confident because I was able to reconnect with my relatives on my mother's side. And so I told my batchmates, I can go to Cebu and I can buy the books for all of us because we wanted to have that book. It's a necessity po kasi for that semester. So there I arrived and I found on my way to my relative's house, I found a group of people. And I can see that mayroong commotion. And when I pried on, I can see that there is gambling. And I can see that someone is losing. And I can hear people, wow, pagkakataon na natin, magkakapera tayo dito. Ano mo? Di niya alam. I don't know what happened to me, but I also joined in gambling. So, when I started to play gambling, I slowly realized na ako na yung natatalo. Unti-unting nawawalang pera ko. Ang masakit, hindi ko pa pera yon. Pera ng mga kaklase ko, kabatch ko sa college. But I'm just thankful that I was able to get away from it, no? Because They are already trying to take away my stuff as payment. Little did I know that they were in cahoots together. Modus operandi pala nila yun. No? Na mangloko ng tao. I know each one of us have our foolish mistakes for once in our life in the past. But we could learn something from it. No? Kasi ngayon, uso pa rin yan, ang scamming. We should learn to identify the telltale signs of scams. No? Minsan, hindi pa po tayo natututo eh. So that is one thing that I have learned. Something that I am ashamed. But one thing for sure is that not only me, there are many more that have been fooled, that have been scammed. Some have put their retirement into jeopardy. Some have lost their lifelong savings. Sana po, wag mong nyari po ito sa atin. No? There's no such thing as get rich, a quick rich scheme. No? Magduda na tayo. Kasi to get money, you need to work for it. No? You need to put an effort to get money. So back to the verse, this is where greed comes in. Dissatisfied, you give in to temptation of making more money through dishonesty, of sometimes violence. You end up gambling, speculating, engage in fraud, perjury, and theft, and even murder. Because of greed, you can fall into a trap, not able to get out of the vicious cycle of never having enough and yearning for more. Even after reaching the set goal, you decide that it is not enough, so you go back again. Because of greed, foolishness sets in, entering the rat race, or keeping up with the Joneses to the point of sacrificing what really matters in life. Because of greed, they endanger their health and even jeopardize their soul by doing that, those that are not pleasing to God. So the bottom line here is that dangers can be avoided if you are contented. Indeed, all kinds of evil come from loving money. It is one of the sources, the great sources of evil. It leads us to envy, quarrel, conflict, cheating, embezzlement, theft, selfishness, and forgetting about God. Instead of using money in various ways for the service of the Lord, there is the uncontrolled desire for money that leads to sin, shame, and wandering from the Christian faith. In their mind striving after more money, they neglect about the spiritual things and becomes difficult to tell whether they are saved at all. Not only did they lose the grip on spiritual values, but they pierce themselves through with many sorrows. There's the tragedy of wasted life. There's the grief of losing the children to the world. There is the sorrow of their wealth vanishing overnight. There's the fear of meeting God because they are ashamed. We have been both reminded and forewarned as to how we should clear ourselves from the dangers about loving money. We were reminded that we should look at life with an eternal perspective. And remember that we cannot take anything with us when we leave this world, when the time has come. That we should enjoy the essentials with simple acceptance. What can we do then? Now, there are 4 generations of boy here, don't you know? For the youth, for the young professional, for the youthful looking, and for the young at heart. No? Which one do you belong? I want you to remember this great formula, that godliness plus contentment equals great gain. That is the formula for the true wealth, because true wealth is a matter of the heart. To believe that we have a gracious and just God, and that we have our own place in this world to serve His purposes and only for His glory. If we could only accept that fact, we will have that great gain. we will be able to enjoy the riches of God as He graciously gives us. Because He is always faithful to His promises, that if we keep our lives free from the love of money and be contented with what we have, God will never leave us nor forsake us. The greatest riches a person can have is to have that one who promises us that He will never leave us nor forsake us. What shall we do then? After hearing all these things, it is much better to have your bank in heaven than have your heaven in your bank. In short, we should pursue godliness rather than wealth.